Racist police officer learns a harsh lesson after stopping the wrong black man. He was driving home, calm, careful, and within the speed limit. No music blasting, no sudden turns, nothing suspicious at all. But the flashing red and blue lights still appeared in his rearview mirror. His heart sank. He knew what this meant. Within moments, he was pulled over by an officer who looked at him not as a man, but as a problem. What the officer didn't know was that this so-called ordinary black driver wasn't ordinary at all. He was someone with the power to end a career with just one report. Marcus Taylor was no stranger to law enforcement. In fact, he was part of it. A seasoned investigator in the Internal Affairs Division, he had spent years rooting out corruption, misconduct, and abuse of power within the police force. But Marcus didn't advertise who he was. Off-duty, he preferred a quiet life, dinners with his wife, weekend basketball with his son, and evening drives to clear his head after long days. On this particular night, Marcus wore a simple button-up shirt, driving his modest black sedan. He had just finished dinner with an old friend and was heading home through a quiet suburban street. To anyone watching, it should have been the most unremarkable thing. But for Officer Reynolds, who was sitting in his squad car across the street, Marcus was something else, a target. Reynolds had a reputation around the precinct, known for being aggressive, quick to escalate, and always suspicious of black drivers. To him, Marcus fit the profile before he even checked the plates. As Marcus slowed at a stop sign, the headlights flared behind him. Within seconds, the cruiser's sirens wailed, and Marcus pulled to the side of the road. He sighed. This wasn't the first time he had been profiled, even while working in law enforcement, but tonight would be different. Tonight, the officer had no idea just who he had stopped. Officer Reynolds approached the car with heavy footsteps. Flashlight in hand, tapping it against the glass aggressively, Marcus rolled the window down calmly, hands visible on the steering wheel. "License and registration," the officer barked, not even offering a greeting. Marcus complied, moving slowly, narrating each action to avoid any misunderstandings. But it didn't matter. Reynolds' eyes scanned Marcus like he was already guilty. "Where are you coming from?" Reynolds pressed. "Dinner," Marcus replied evenly. "Dinner, huh? You live around here?" "Yes, just a few miles down." Reynolds smirked. "Mind if I take a look inside your vehicle?" Marcus's stomach tightened. He knew his rights. There was no probable cause. Still, Reynolds leaned in further, shining his light across the seats, muttering under his breath. The officer began asking leading questions, hinting at drugs, alcohol, or stolen property. Each word carried suspicion, laced with the arrogance of someone who thought he held all the power. Marcus felt the old, familiar anger rise in his chest, but he stayed calm. He had seen too many situations spiral, but Reynolds wasn't done. He ordered Marcus out of the car. The neighborhood was quiet, but porch lights flicked on as curious neighbors peeked through curtains. Marcus stepped out, hands steady, movements deliberate. The officer patted him down roughly, clearly searching for something that wasn't there. "You know," Reynolds sneered, "guys like you are always up to something. You think driving a nice car makes you above suspicion?" Marcus locked eyes with him. He could have revealed his badge right then. He could have pulled rank, ended this humiliation in an instant. But he waited. He wanted to see just how far this officer would go. Reynolds radioed something in, clearly trying to find a reason to justify the stop. Minutes dragged into what felt like hours. Marcus stood by his car, the cold night air thick with tension. Every second built the pressure built. Every question, every glare was a reminder. This wasn't about law enforcement. It was about prejudice. And Officer Reynolds was about to learn a lesson he'd never forget. Finally, Marcus reached into his wallet, pulled out his identification card, and handed it over. But this wasn't just a driver's license. It was his official Internal Affairs badge. The golden emblem gleamed under the officer's flashlight. Reynolds froze. His smirk faded instantly. His eyes darted from the badge to Marcus's face, struggling to process what he was holding. I didn't realize," Reynolds stammered, suddenly backpedaling. Marcus's voice was calm, but carried a weight that cut sharper than anger. "You didn't ask. You assumed. And you treated me like a criminal for driving home from dinner." The silence was deafening. For the first time all night, Reynolds looked unsure. His confidence had cracked. Marcus leaned in slightly. "Do you know what Internal Affairs does, Officer Reynolds?" The color drained from his face. He knew. Internal Affairs investigated misconduct. Officers who abused their badge, who profiled, who violated the law they swore to uphold. And now he had profiled the wrong man. Reynolds stuttered an apology, but it was empty, trembling, desperate. The power dynamic had shifted entirely. Neighbors who had been watching from their porches now saw the officer humbled, stripped of arrogance. And Marcus? He didn't need to shout. He didn't need to threaten. The badge spoke louder than words. For the first time that night, the officer stepped back. Realizing just how badly he had crossed the line, Marcus let the silence linger before finally speaking. "You'll be hearing from my office," he said quietly, slipping the badge back into his wallet. "And next time you pull someone over, remember this moment." Reynolds nodded quickly, muttering apologies, but Marcus didn't respond. He got back into his car, started the engine, and drove away, leaving the officer standing in the cold, drowning in his own fear of what was to come. Back home, Marcus sat in his driveway for a long moment. He wasn't angry for himself, he was used to it. He was angry for every black man and woman who couldn't flash a badge, who couldn't turn the tables. For every stop that ended not with humiliation but with tragedy. The next morning, a formal complaint was filed. Reynolds' behavior would be investigated. He wouldn't be able to hide behind excuses or lies, not this time. But the story wasn't just about one officer. It was about a system that allowed prejudice to live in plain sight. Marcus had power that night, but he knew millions didn't, and that's the chilling reality. So the next time someone insists racism in policing is exaggerated, remember this, black man had to be the head of internal affairs, just to survive a traffic stop with his dignity intact. And if that doesn't make us question the system, what will?